The massive alien warships hung in the black void of space like steel vultures circling their prey. Station Omega, humanity's final outpost among the stars, was completely surrounded. There was nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. The conquest fleet had arrived 3 weeks ago, and since then life for the 20,000 colonists had become a waking nightmare. Queen Vela commanded this fleet, and her reputation traveled faster than light itself. Across 12 different star systems, her name was whispered with terror. She had a particular hobby that made even hardened soldiers feel sick to their stomachs. Whenever she conquered a new world, she would search for that planet's most dangerous predator. Not to study them or preserve them, but to cage them in the center of whatever colony or city she occupied. Then she would let them starve slowly while the conquered people watched helplessly. It was psychological warfare at its cruelest. She wanted to break spirits before she broke bodies. And it had worked on every species she had ever faced. Until now. Her latest prizes had arrived on Station Omega 5 days ago. 2 transport cages were carried into the main plaza by her insect-like soldiers. When the covers were pulled away, every human in sight felt their hearts clench. Inside were Rex and Ash, a massive male African lion and his young cub. They were the last of their kind, rescued from Earth's biopreservation vault before the planet fell. Rex was magnificent even in captivity. His mane was thick and dark, his body packed with 400 pounds of pure muscle. His amber eyes held an intelligence that made people uncomfortable. This was not just an animal. This was something that had survived at the top of the food chain for millions of years. His cub, Ash, was small and golden, staying close to his father's side with wide, frightened eyes. The energy cage hummed with a sickly blue light. Shimmering bars of pure force kept the lions trapped in a space barely large enough for Rex to turn around. The cage sat right in the middle of the plaza where everyone could see it. Where everyone would have to walk past it every single day. Queen Vela wanted this to hurt. The entire colony was called to assembly that first day. Thousands of humans packed into the plaza, standing in silence as Queen Vela's translator broadcast her message. Her voice was sharp and clicking, translated into cold mechanical English by the device mounted on her thorax. The terms were simple. Feed her lions and the surrender conditions would remain as stated. Refuse, and every day the lions went without food, the terms would become harsher. More territory would be seized. More freedoms would be stripped away. More hostages would be taken. The choice was theirs. Director Mike Stevens was a retired Navy commander who had helped establish Station Omega 15 years ago. He was 62 years old with gray hair and deep lines carved into his face from decades of difficult decisions. But nothing had prepared him for this moment. He stood on the platform looking out at his people, then at the lions, then back at the waiting alien queen. He cleared his throat and spoke into the microphone. His voice was steady, but everyone could hear the weight behind each word. No one feeds them. Not a single scrap of food. Not a drop of water beyond what the aliens provide. This is not a request. This is an order. The plaza erupted in shocked murmurs. Parents pulled their children closer. Some people started crying immediately. Others looked angry like they wanted to argue. But Mike continued speaking, his voice growing stronger. I know what I'm asking. I know how hard this will be. But if we give in now, we give in to everything. They want to break us by making us watch something innocent suffer. They want us to feel so guilty that we'll do anything to make it stop. But that's exactly why we can't. Our defiance is the only weapon we have left. The alien guards found this hilarious. Their laughter sounded like chittering insects, high-pitched and mocking. They had seen this play out on 11 other worlds. The soft species always broke. Usually took 3 days, maybe 4. Watching something starve was too much for most civilized creatures to bear. Humans would be no different. But they had never met humans before. The first day was the hardest. People couldn't stop staring at the cage. Rex paced back and forth, his massive paws silent on the metal floor. Ash stayed curled in the corner, occasionally letting out small mewing sounds that made every parent on the station want to weep. The aliens had provided water, but no food. That was the whole point. By the second day, children were having nightmares. Teachers struggled to keep kids focused in school when they knew what was happening in the plaza. Some colonists stopped eating their own meals, unable to stomach food while Rex and Ash starved. Counselors worked overtime trying to help people cope with the collective guilt. The third day brought something unexpected. Rex stopped pacing randomly. Instead, he moved with purpose, always placing himself between Ash and the viewing platforms where humans gathered. He would stand there for hours, staring out at the crowds with those unsettling amber eyes. And he made sounds. Low rumbling growls that came in patterns. 3 short. Too long. Pause. 3 short. Too long. Dr. Lisa Morgan noticed it first. She was 51 years old, a wildlife biologist who had spent 30 years studying Earth's predators before the evacuation. She had worked with lions in Africa, back when Africa still existed. She knew their behavior, their body language, their vocalizations. And what Rex was doing was not normal lion behavior. She stood at the barrier watching him for 3 straight hours on that third day. Her assistant, a young man named Tom Bradley, brought her coffee and asked what she was seeing. "He's not just surviving in there," Lisa said quietly, never taking her eyes off Rex. "He's thinking. Planning. Look at how he positions himself. Look at his eyes. He's watching us as much as we're watching him." Tom frowned. Lions are smart, but they're still animals. What could he possibly be planning? Lisa finally turned to look at him, and Tom was startled by the intensity in her expression. "I don't know yet. But I think we're about to find out." Queen Vela wanted to twist the knife deeper into human hearts. On the 4th day, she ordered her officers to set up elaborate dining tables just 15 meters from the lion's cage. Right there in the plaza where everyone could see. The smell of roasted meats and exotic dishes from a dozen conquered worlds filled the air. Her soldiers ate and laughed while Rex and Ash grew weaker behind the shimmering energy bars. It was calculated cruelty. The alien queen wanted every human walking through that plaza to smell the food, to see the feast, to feel the full weight of their choice. She wanted them to understand that plenty existed, that ending the suffering would be simple, that all it would take was one person breaking ranks and tossing some scraps through the energy field. But while Queen Vela was playing her psychological games, Dr. Lisa Morgan was discovering something that would change everything. She had set up a small observation post in one of the plaza's maintenance alcoves. She had her laptop, her old research notes from Earth, and enough coffee to stay awake for days. Because Rex was doing something she had never seen in 30 years of studying predators. He was learning the station. Every 2 hours, alien guards walked a patrol route around the plaza. Rex tracked them. His huge head would turn slowly, following each guard from the moment they entered his line of sight until they disappeared around a corner. His eyes never left them. Lisa timed it. Rex had memorized the patrol schedule down to the minute by day 3. But it went beyond just watching guards. The energy cage flickered occasionally, a barely noticeable pulse in the blue light that most people missed entirely. Rex didn't miss it. Lisa watched him test the timing, moving closer to the bars right when they flickered, then pulling back. He was mapping the weakness in the field, learning its rhythm like a hunter learns the breathing pattern of prey. And those eyes. Those yellow eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light. Rex spent hours staring at the humans who gathered to watch him. Not with the blank gaze of a trapped animal, but with focus. With purpose. He was studying them right back. Learning to read their faces, their gestures, their body language. Lisa found herself wondering something impossible. In all the millions of years that humans and lions had evolved together on Earth, they had developed an understanding. Dogs had been domesticated, but lions had remained wild. Yet they had lived alongside humans, competed with humans, been hunted by humans and occasionally hunted humans in return. Had that created something? Some deep recognition between the two species that no alien could understand? By the 4th night, the situation became desperate. Little Ash had curled into a tight ball against his father's side. The cub barely moved anymore except to whimper softly. That sound carried through the station's ventilation system, a heartbreaking noise that seemed to echo down every corridor. Parents covered their children's ears, but it didn't help. Everyone knew what was happening in the plaza. Kids cried themselves to sleep asking why nobody would help the baby lion. Teachers struggled to explain concepts like sacrifice and resistance to 7-year-olds who just wanted the hurting to stop. Adults weren't handling it much better. People stopped using the plaza entirely, taking longer routes through maintenance tunnels to avoid seeing the cage. Others couldn't stay away, standing vigil for hours like mourners at a funeral that hadn't happened yet. Fistfights broke out twice between colonists who couldn't agree whether Director Stevens had made the right call. But the order held. Not one single piece of food reached that cage. Not from 20,000 humans who walked past it every day. Queen Vela arrived in person on the 5th day. She wanted to witness the breaking point herself. Her shuttle landed in the plaza's docking area with a hiss of hydraulics. She emerged surrounded by her royal guard, her exoskeleton gleaming black and purple under the station lights. Her face was insectoid and alien, with compound eyes that reflected light in unsettling ways. When she was pleased, her mandibles spread wide in what might have been a smile. She was very pleased today. Director Stevens was forced to stand before her as she made her announcement. Her translator spoke in that cold mechanical voice while she clicked and chittered in her own language. The new decree was simple and brutal. If the lions died, there would be consequences. For each day the beasts had been denied food, 10 colonists would be executed. They were on day 5. That meant 50 humans would die. The Queen would personally select them, and she would make sure to choose families. Parents and children together. She wanted maximum impact. Stevens stood there taking it, his jaw clenched so tight Lisa could see the muscles jumping in his cheek. But he didn't break. He didn't countermand his order. When Queen Vela finally dismissed him, he walked away with his back straight and his head high, even though everyone could see his hands shaking. That night, Lisa Morgan made a decision that was either brilliant or insane. Possibly both. She had noticed something that afternoon that made her heart race. Rex had stopped drinking the water that the guards placed in his cage. Not because he wasn't thirsty. Lisa could see his tongue was dry, his breathing labored from dehydration. But he would approach the water bowl, sniff it carefully, then deliberately tip it over with his paw. The water would spill across the cage floor and pool against the base of the energy field. Rex would crouch down and watch intently as the liquid touched the barrier. The field would spark slightly, little blue flashes where water met energy. The pattern of sparks changed depending on where the water touched. Rex was testing it, experimenting, gathering data. This wasn't instinct. This was problem-solving intelligence that shouldn't have been possible. But Lisa had seen enough. She believed. She waited until 2 in the morning when the station was at its quietest. The guard patrols were most relaxed then, their attention dulled by hours of boring duty. Lisa had her old research tablet, a brick of outdated technology she had brought from Earth. It still worked though. She had loaded something onto it. Something crazy. She approached the cage from the blind spot she had identified in the patrol routes. Her heart hammered so hard she thought the guards might hear it. Rex's eyes locked onto her immediately. He didn't make a sound. Didn't move. Just watched. Lisa got as close as she dared to the energy field. She could feel it humming, making the hair on her arms stand up. She pulled out the tablet and held it up so Rex could see the screen. On it was a simplified schematic of the station's power grid. Color-coded. Animated with flowing lines showing how energy moved through the system. Could a lion understand blueprints? Of course not. That was absurd. But could a lion understand patterns? Could a predator that had evolved to track prey across vast territories, to remember waterhole locations, to navigate by stars and landmarks, recognize that flowing energy was just another kind of map? Lisa met those yellow eyes and whispered, "I don't know if you understand, but I think you're trying. So here. Maybe this helps." She slid the tablet across the floor, using just enough force to send it skittering right up to the edge of the energy field. Then she turned and walked away quickly, before her nerve failed or a guard spotted her. Behind her Rex moved. Silent as a shadow, the huge lion padded forward. He stared down at the glowing tablet. At the moving patterns of light. At the map of power flowing through Station Omega. And very slowly, Rex reached out one massive paw and pulled the tablet through the energy field into his cage. Rex didn't sleep that night. He sat in the center of his cage with the tablet positioned between his front paws, staring at the glowing screen like a monk studying sacred texts. The device cast a blue light across his scarred face, making his eyes seem to glow even brighter in the darkness. Little Ash was curled against his side, too weak now to do much more than breathe. Lisa watched from her hidden observation spot, barely daring to hope. She had taken an enormous risk. If the guards had caught her passing something to the lion, she would have been executed immediately. Queen Vela didn't tolerate interference with her psychological games. But as Lisa watched Rex study that screen hour after hour, she became convinced she had made the right choice. The tablet showed a simplified map of Station Omega's electrical system. Lisa had color-coded everything. Red lines showed high-power conduits. Blue showed standard lighting and life support. Yellow marked the backup systems. And there, pulsing in bright green, was the energy cage's power node and all its connections to the main grid. Rex couldn't read English. He couldn't understand voltage ratings or circuit diagrams. But he didn't need to. Because what Lisa had created wasn't really a technical blueprint. It was a territory map. And if there was one thing millions of years of evolution had perfected in apex predators, it was the ability to understand territory. Lions in the wild could remember the locations of waterholes 50 miles apart. They could track prey across savannas the size of small countries. They navigated using landmarks, stars, and an internal map of their world that scientists still didn't fully understand. Rex's brain wasn't wired for reading or mathematics. But it was absolutely wired for spatial reasoning and pattern recognition. The blinking lights on the tablet showed power flowing through the station. To Rex, this wasn't electricity. This was movement. Like water flowing through a river system. Like prey animals following migration routes. The green pulse that marked his cage was just another point on a map, connected to other points by pathways that carried something important. He watched the patterns for hours. Watched how the power flow changed every few minutes. Watched the rhythm of it. The timing. And slowly something clicked in that predator brain. This wasn't just a map. This was showing him weakness. Showing him where the energy that trapped him came from. Showing him the heartbeat of his cage. Day 6 arrived with a crushing sense of despair hanging over the entire station. Ash hadn't moved in hours. The little cub's ribs showed clearly through his golden fur. His breathing was shallow and rapid. Medical staff who passed through the plaza estimated he had maybe 24 hours left. Maybe less. Rex himself was in bad shape. His powerful muscles had begun to waste away. His movements were slower, more careful. But his eyes remained sharp and focused. He was conserving energy now. Waiting for something. Queen Vela announced she would be holding the execution ceremony on day 8. She wanted the lions dead first. She wanted humans to watch them die, to feel the full weight of their choice before she started killing colonists. She was having a special platform constructed in the plaza. Everything would happen right there where everyone could see. Day 7 arrived like a funeral march. The execution platform was nearly complete. Ash lay motionless except for the slight rise and fall of his chest. Many colonists believed the cub was already dead. Parents were keeping their children away now, not wanting them to see the final moments. But Lisa Morgan was still watching. And she saw Rex finally move. The big lion stood up carefully, his legs shaking slightly from weakness. He stretched, working blood back into cramped muscles. Then he moved to the center of the cage, directly beneath the brightest point in the energy field overhead. He positioned himself with precision, adjusting his stance several times until he was exactly where he wanted to be. Then Rex opened his mouth and roared. But this wasn't like any roar Lisa had ever heard. It wasn't the deep, thunderous bellow that lions use to claim territory or warn rivals. This was different. Rex roared in short, controlled bursts. 3 seconds of sound. 2 seconds of silence. 3 seconds of sound. 2 seconds of silence. Over and over in a precise rhythm. The sound was so loud it made people clap their hands over their ears. It echoed off the plaza walls, bouncing back and forth. The acoustic waves crashed into each other, building and amplifying. And something strange started happening. In the alien control room overlooking the plaza, warning lights began flashing across multiple panels. A technician who had been half asleep jerked upright in his seat. The energy readings from the cage were spiking wildly. Audio sensors were showing resonance frequencies building in the plaza. The computer system was displaying alerts in the alien language, warnings scrolling faster than anyone could read them. The cage began to flicker. Not the gentle pulse that Rex had been studying for days, but violent fluctuations. The blue light dimmed, brightened, dimmed again. The hum of the energy field changed pitch, rising and falling in time with Rex's roars. Other technicians rushed to their stations trying to stabilize the system. What they didn't understand was that Rex had figured it out. The pattern in the tablet had shown him that his cage was connected to the station systems. And the rhythm of power flow he had memorized matched acoustic frequencies. The resonance patterns were right there in the data, repeating at regular intervals. Rex couldn't explain the physics of it. But he understood that sound could make things shake. Could break things. It was something every predator knew instinctively from shattering bones between their jaws. For exactly 3 seconds the field dropped to almost nothing. The flickering blue light dimmed to barely visible. It wasn't off completely, the backup systems prevented that. But it was weak. Vulnerable. Rex moved with the explosive speed that made lions one of Earth's deadliest hunters. But he didn't try to jump through the weakened field. That would have been suicide. The guards were right there with their weapons ready. Instead, he grabbed the tablet in his massive jaws and dragged it right into the very center of the cage, into the brightest concentration of energy. The alien guards started laughing. They chittered and clicked to each other in their language, amused by the stupid animal protecting a useless device. They thought Rex had formed some kind of attachment to the glowing object. It was pathetic and funny. They were still laughing when Rex very deliberately raised his front paw, all 400 pounds of weight behind it, and brought it smashing down onto the tablet with crushing force. The device's screen shattered. Its power cell, compressed violently, short-circuited in a burst of electrical discharge. And because Rex had positioned it in the exact center of the energy field's strongest point, that discharge fed directly into the cage's local power node. The feedback was instantaneous. Electricity arced from the destroyed tablet into the field emitters. The control systems tried to compensate, but the surge was too fast, too localized. Every warning alarm in the alien control room started screaming at once. And in that moment, Rex looked directly at Lisa Morgan across the plaza. Their eyes met. And she could swear she saw something in that yellow gaze that looked almost like a smile. The Predator had just made his move. Now came the hard part. The moment Rex smashed that tablet, something incredible happened that even the smartest human scientist had only imagined in her wildest dreams. That energy cage wasn't just sitting there on its own power. No, it was connected to something much bigger, the whole plaza's gravity system. Think about it like this. When you plug too many things into one power strip and something shorts out, everything flickers for a second. That's exactly what happened here, except this flicker changed everything. When the tablet exploded, it sent a shock through the entire power grid. For just a tiny moment, we're talking about 0.3 of a single second, the gravity in a small area around that cage got weaker. To you and me, that's nothing. Blink and you'd miss it. But to a lion? To a creature whose ancestors had spent millions of years learning to time their attacks to the exact heartbeat? That tiny window was everything. Rex had been watching, waiting, calculating. His body was coiled like a spring, every muscle ready. When he felt that shift, that microsecond where the air felt just a bit lighter, he exploded forward with everything he had. His powerful back legs launched him straight at that crackling energy wall. Now here's the thing about that moment of weakened gravity. It didn't just make Rex lighter. It made the energy field weaker too. Think of it like trying to hold back water. The less pressure behind you, the easier something can push through. Rex hit that barrier with 400 pounds of pure determination behind him. The field fought back hard. His magnificent mane started smoking immediately. The smell of burning fur filled the air. His skin began to sear where the energy touched it. Pain shot through every nerve in his body. His muscles locked up and spasmed from the electrical current. For a horrible second it looked like he might not make it. But Rex kept pushing, kept fighting, kept moving forward through that wall of agony. And then he was through. He crashed down on the other side like a meteor made of teeth and claws. The alien guards barely had time to raise their weapons before Rex was among them. What happened next was something humans would talk about for generations. This wasn't some crazy, wild attack. Rex didn't just lash out at everything around him. No, he moved like he'd been trained for combat, like he understood exactly what he was doing. He went after the guards with weapons first. Only them. His movements were surgical, precise, terrifying. Each strike had purpose. Each leap had meaning. The aliens had thought they were safe behind their technology and their guns. They were wrong. Rex showed them what millions of years of being a top predator really meant. Little Ash watched his father fight through those metal bars. This tiny cub, who should have been scared out of his mind, did something amazing. He opened his mouth and let out a roar. Sure, it was small and high-pitched compared to his dad's thunderous call, but it carried something powerful. That sound cut through all the noise and chaos and seemed to reach into the chest of every single human on that station. Something snapped in that moment. All those people who'd been pushed down, threatened, treated like they were nothing, they'd been holding everything inside. Every insult, every loss, every moment of helplessness had been building up like pressure in a tank. Rex's courage and Ash's defiant little roar were the spark that made it all explode outward. The lead scientist grabbed the first thing she could find, a plasma torch used for welding metal. The station director started yelling, rallying everyone around him. People grabbed whatever they could reach. Maintenance tools became weapons. Metal pipes became clubs. Workers who'd been fixing air filters and cleaning floors suddenly became fighters. Here's something interesting about these aliens. On their home world, they weren't the hunters. They were the hunted. They'd spent their evolution running and hiding, not fighting. Their technology had made them powerful, sure, but deep down in their bones they were still prey animals. And when Rex came through that barrier, burned and bleeding but still fighting, something ancient in them recognized what he was. A predator. A hunter. Something that couldn't be reasoned with or bought off or scared away. Their sense of being untouchable just shattered like glass. Suddenly, all their weapons and ships didn't make them feel safe anymore. The alien queen saw which way things were going. She turned and ran for her flagship in the docking bay. But the colonists were already moving. They were taking control, seizing access points, cutting off escape routes. And Rex, despite his burns and wounds, despite the pain that must have been overwhelming, wasn't finished hunting. His eyes locked onto that running figure, and every instinct in his body said the same thing. The hunt wasn't over yet. When the colonists finally fought their way to the main airlock, they found a site that would be carved into monuments and painted in murals for centuries to come. There was Rex, his body covered in burns and wounds, barely able to stand. But he wasn't lying down. He wasn't giving up. His massive, scarred form was positioned directly over little Ash, creating a shield of flesh and bone between his cub and the alien shock troops who were trying to take back the station. The old lion had given everything. Every ounce of strength, every bit of courage, every last reserve of energy was gone. His legs trembled. His breathing came in ragged gasps. But his eyes were still fierce, still defiant. He'd done what he set out to do. He'd bought the humans the precious minutes they needed to organize, to fight back, to take control. And he wasn't going to let anyone touch his son. The alien soldiers raised their weapons. They were ordering people to stand down, threatening to open fire. But something remarkable happened. The colonists didn't back away. Instead, they moved forward. Men and women, young and old, they formed a living wall around both lions. They linked arms and stood shoulder to shoulder, creating a barrier of human bodies. The message was crystal clear. If you want to hurt these lions, you'll have to shoot through us first. The aliens hesitated. These weren't soldiers they were facing. These were miners, engineers, farmers, teachers, families. But every single one of them had the same look in their eyes that Rex had. They weren't going to move. They weren't going to surrender. Not anymore. The tense standoff felt like it lasted forever. Weapons were pointed. Hearts were pounding. Nobody knew who would make the first move. And then, cutting through all the tension like thunder, came a sound that changed everything. Ships. Lots of them. Big ones. Commander Riley and Earth's reclamation fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel right outside the station. Their warships appeared on every scanner, surrounding the alien vessels. It turned out Earth hadn't forgotten about Station Omega or any of the colonies. They'd been watching for months, building up their forces, waiting for the right moment. But they needed a signal. They needed proof that the colonists were ready to fight for their freedom. That signal had come when Rex destroyed the tablet. The electrical explosion had sent out a burst of energy across every communication frequency in the sector. Every radio, every transmitter, every sensor had picked it up. And riding along with that energy pulse was Rex's roar, that deep, powerful sound that had been broadcast into space itself. Earth's fleet heard it, understood what it meant, and came running. The battle was over almost before it started. Queen Vela's ships were surrounded and outgunned. Her troops on the station threw down their weapons. Within minutes, the aliens who'd ruled through fear and cruelty found themselves as prisoners. And in a twist that felt like perfect justice, Queen Vela herself was locked inside the very same energy cage that had held Rex. The colonists gathered and voted on what to do with her. They decided she would live. She would be fed and kept healthy. But she would stay in that cage and watch as humanity rebuilt everything she tried to destroy. She would see them thrive. She would see them succeed. And she would know that all her power and cruelty had meant nothing in the end. The station's lead scientist didn't sleep for 2 full days. She worked around the clock, using every bit of medical knowledge she had to save Rex. The lion's injuries were severe. The burns went deep. His body had been pushed beyond what anyone thought possible. There were moments when it looked like he wouldn't make it, when his heart rate dropped and his breathing became so shallow it was barely there. But Rex kept fighting even on that medical table, and slowly, gradually he began to recover. He survived, though he was changed. The beautiful golden mane that had once framed his face was gone, replaced by scar tissue and patches of new growth that came in differently. But those scars became a badge of honor. Every person who saw them knew what they represented. They represented courage, sacrifice. The moment when one brave creature said, "Enough," and changed the course of history. Little Ash grew up in the months and years that followed. The station built a massive new habitat zone, filled with open spaces and natural light. Ash went from a frightened cub to a strong young lion, and eventually he became a father himself. His cubs were born in freedom, never knowing the inside of a cage, never experiencing the cruelty their grandfather had endured. They played and hunted and roared under artificial skies, and they were loved by every human on the station. The story of what happened on Station Omega didn't stay contained. It couldn't. It spread like wildfire across every human settlement in known space. From the inner core worlds to the furthest frontier colonies, people heard about the lion who wouldn't break and the humans who stood with him. They heard how everyone had refused to give in to the alien queen's cruel test. How that unity and that refusal had sparked a revolution. Here's the thing that made the story so powerful. humanity didn't win because someone broke down and fed the lions. They didn't win because they compromised or gave the aliens what they wanted. They won because humans and Earth's greatest predator understood something together, something that the alien empire with all its technology and conquered worlds could never grasp. Sometimes survival isn't about feeding the immediate hunger in front of you. Sometimes it's not about taking the easy path or making the quick choice that stops the pain right now. Sometimes survival is about enduring. It's about trusting your pride, whether that's a pride of lions or the pride of humanity itself, to hold on through the darkness. It's about believing that the situation will change, that help will come, that the terrible moment you're living through isn't forever. Because predators, real predators, know something prey animals never learn. They know patience. They know timing. They know that if you can just hold on, if you can just survive long enough, your moment will come. The hunt always comes around again. And when it does, you'd better be ready to take it. The end.